Welcome back to Sci-Fi Book Trek. Today we're tackling our spoiler review of the TNG novel Metamorphosis.
Right then, time for a summary. It all starts at a party on the Enterprise in a holodeck, with everyone invited, including Riker. Then, the Enterprise gets called away to go to the neutral zone, Romulan neutral zone that is, and see if they can open up a new corridor so tourists can go and look.
Because that's exactly what you want on a on the border of neutral space.
Nothing can possibly go wrong. While they're there, they get a distress call from the Silver Paladins, a group of mercenaries who are pottering around for God knows reasons. They're caught in a gravity well of something that keeps on pulling them closer to a planet. The Enterprise finally gets there, rescues them, realises that Data already knows these people, so welcomes aboard to repair their ships. They beam down to the planet, Data and the other crew, just to see what's going on, because they know this planet's inhabited. So they go down, talk to the people, they talk about their gods, and then they go to a giant mountain where the gods are at the top. All the crew members beam up, apart from Data, conveniently. He bumps into one of the local residents there, and they decide, we're on a quest to go to the top of the mountain and talk to the gods. So they trek all the way inside the mountain and all the way up through trial and error of the gods themselves, which mostly involves them playing with the thermostat. But eventually, they finally get to the gods. The lady companion, the resident, she gets her wish, and Data, instead of getting, information on why this gravity thing is happening and pulling ships in and it's a danger, no, he just gets transformed into a real boy. He gets beamed back up to the Enterprise, lovely, who call for red alert because no one recognises him now as a human person, apart from the Doctor, Pulaski,
Yes.
who is the newest member of crew to see him, and he's just like, oh yeah, that's Data, and Geordie, his best friend. No one else recognises him. Anyway, they find out, oh no, it is Data. But then he has to get retested because, of course, he's now flesh and blood and can't do stuff as well as he could before. And also he has to have time off to work out what it's like being human. They get a distress call from another planet, which is a week or two away. And because this is the Federation, there is only one ship within range. So the Enterprise starts heading a week away to this other planet. And in that week, Data decides, oh yes, I'll retest. He retests stuff. He's great. He actually has sex with someone.
From you, Data, you are fully functional, aren't you?
Of course, but
How fully?
in every way, of course. I am programmed in multiple techniques. A broad variety of pleasuring.
Then he managed to outshoot Worf, which, yes, actually can happen.
I practiced at level 14.
Guess I could come down to that level for a while.
So then, at the point when they get to the planet, they find out there's these 3 planets all colonised by the same people. But they're being viciously attacked, murdered, and killed by the evil Connor. Of course, being Picard, he doesn't want to actually fight anyone because, this is the series, not the films. So they try to gather as much information on the Connor as they can, and they find out it's just a civil war.
Making it an internal matter and so not covered by the Prime Directive.
Yes. And also it's, again, all about religion and, religion generally killing people. They beam down to the planet. Now, they beam down the 4 crew people we know from the series and Thalen, who, let's be honest, might as well have a target painted on his head and wearing a red shirt only. He, of course, gets killed
because of the actions of the most incompetent diplomat in Federation history, Deanna Troi.
They beam him back, but instead of saving his life, they can't because of his religion, proving that religion just kills people. Then after that, they realise they can't do anything. Prime Directive stipulates they can't do anything. So they fly away, do some little milk runs, but Data is still depressed after about a week of doing simple tasks. Everyone else has bounced back, gone, oh, we've left a whole planet to die. Yay! They're happy about it. They've got over it. But Data hasn't. So at first he thinks, oh God, I've got woman problems. I'm dreaming about someone I don't know. So of course he goes, talks to Riker. Riker immediately knows it's about women because no one talks to Riker unless it's about women. Riker tells him, don't be silly, go to Troi. Troi hypnotizes him and goes, the person you're fantasizing about is, what was her name?
Belia. The woman he knew for the matter of hours.
Yes. He goes to the captain and requests leave, and the captain goes, nah, I'll tell you what, we'll just turn the ship around and go back to the planet. I mean, nothing better to do. So they do that, beam Data down. Data goes to a castle, finds out she's getting married to the prince of a distant land.
It should have been me, not him! It's not fair!
He beams up with a broken heart, decides to go on being miserable. But the transporters are whisked him to the top of the mountain with the gods, and the gods say, well, we didn't give you this to be miserable. And also the gods say, because you chose to be human, the ramifications is a galactic war that's going to kill billions. So Data unwishes his wish. The gods go, granted, boom. He's back on the beach just before he meets the other, resident of the planet, Thelia. And this time, for some miraculous reason, he manages to step out of the way so she doesn't see him. Data beams up. Then, as you can imagine, time plays out the same but slightly different. For one, he doesn't have sex. Disappointment. But when he gets to the planet and tries to solve the evil Connor situation, now he's an android, understands, wait a sec, they're not communicating the way the Federation think they're communicating a different way. So then Geordi and Data make a big circuit board inside his chest which can project his thoughts to the evil Connor. And so he tricks the prisoner they've got on board. He should beam down to a planet with the prisoner and he can take him to their leader. They go to a leader, he projects and goes, "Oh, hi." And they're all like, "Oh my god, another person who's got a soul like us. It's amazing." So he gets an audience with the people. And during this address he gives them, he basically says, "If you think I've got a soul, I'm a machine." Look, he opens his chest, pulls out the circuit board and goes, "Look, I'm just a machine. I'm a machine. I can't have a soul because I'm a machine. And if I can do what you're doing to prove you've got a soul, that means you're incorrect." They all go, "Oh, our religious belief has been wrong all this time." You know, because if you use logic and reason to talk to people with religion, it obviously works. Always. So, Data beams up after probably breaking the Prime Directive, but, you know, he had the captain's permission, so. The war doesn't happen, they make peace, and everyone lives in happiness ever after. The end.
So, what did you like about it?
There's an Arthur C. Clarke quote on page 30. I mean, it's not attributed to him, but it is a Clarke quote.
Is that it?
No. No. I did like overall. The story was interesting. I don't think it fully paid off, especially coming from Measure of a Man. Having Data standing in a group of people yelling, "I am a machine, I am a tool," didn't grab me the way it should. Because, for one, someone should have recorded that, sent it to Maddox, and Maddox gone, "Oh, I am right, I've got ruling to overturn the decision." And then can experiment with Data all he wants. So for me, that was messy. The whole, like, at least it threw in that these religious people have only been of that religion for one generation. Like, the generation they're in. So it's easier for them to change their point of view.
Yes, as opposed to being indoctrinated over generations and generations.
Because otherwise that wouldn't work. As it does say, so that is good. It does acknowledge that point. I do like Data's journey. Some of it is a bit cliche with, you know, his friend dying. That
Ricky the Red Shirt.
Yeah, it was just, alright, he's just there to get killed. So Data can learn about grief. And kind of like Chris was there just so Data could
Get his leg over.
Yeah, and he was like, "Okay, sure. Whatever." I did like some of the interactions with him and the crew when he was human, and like some of the aspects of him trying to come to terms with his human functions and his human memories, and how sometimes, you know, it isn't stored as a file somewhere in his head.
Yeah.
I did like all that aspect. I mean, what did you like? Because you really like this book.
I do really like this book. I like the fact that it's written as you would an episode. Maybe that's just a bit of a weird thing to be sort of fixated on, but the idea that this could have been an episode that was left out. Admittedly, like you've just said, the timing's a bit off. The fact that you've got Measure of a Man where Data is declared as a something.
Yeah.
Not necessarily as a person. I believe the ruling was Data has the potential to find that out for himself. But as you say, the end part where it's like, I am a machine, I have been manufactured, that admittedly is a bit of a, okay, that's a little bit weirdly timed.
Yeah.
In terms of position with that episode. But yeah, I like Data's journey. Yes, you could say it's a bit too convenient that he has all the experiences of being human sort of thrust upon him in a very, very short amount of time, specifically those that people would consider as perhaps vices. But I think that's partly to go with the theme of Data losing his halo and becoming mortal man, losing his innocence. The fact that there's the point in the book where he goes from being very much a prim and proper android, still thinking as an android would do, to he starts going downhill very, very quickly. And it's interesting to see his sort of not a degradation of the character, but almost like he's suddenly become human and is subject to the whims of, I wouldn't even say laziness, but he suddenly decides, well, I'm not going to go to all the fitness classes that I have to because I'm not going to be a security officer. It's almost like I don't have to live up to the requirements of being an android anymore. But then he kind of goes from that point, it's like rather than pushing himself to be the best person he can be, he's gone from, I was an android, now I'm not an android, so that gives me an excuse to just be human.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting way to take that character.
I mean, I would say physically, yes, he sort of, eats chocolate in the day, like has ice cream with Wesley constantly. But mentally, he does, but because that's what he treasures most, even when he was an android, it's his mental agility.
Yes.
And like he retests himself, and as soon as he finds out he hasn't got memories of some of the things that happened in like the academy, downloads the information, starts reading it. So he does see that aspect of it, and he just tried to be the best he can in that role.
But it's interesting that he values his mental agility as his best asset to the crew, as opposed to the other things that, as an android, made him certainly superior, like his strength. Yes, exactly. I mean, admittedly, there is the point that's made with him out-shooting Worf that he's still got his android-like reflexes for some reason. But, like I say, that journey that he goes on it's a fun and kind of almost a sobering experience of like it makes sense to me, or at least it makes sense for me with the character, what I know of the character, that it feels like a realistic portrayal of the journey that he might go on if someone quite literally waved a magic wand and said, "You're a person now."
I mean, is there anything you dislike about it?
I don't think there's anything I particularly dislike. I do enjoy this book. Like I say,
that's right.
It could be that I'm not looking at it objectively, that there's a bit of the rose-coloured glasses because it is such an old book, and it does have significance to me.
Well, I mean, you like it because it feels like a TNG episode.
Yes.
You keep saying, and like it feels current with like an episode of TNG at the time.
Mm-hmm. And it feels like it's got more of a handle of the characters, certainly the character of Data.
All the characters do feel like they are from the show.
Yes. as opposed to some of the more modern iterations of Trek, which it feels like they've completely lost their way.
Because I did enjoy and like Lasky.
Yeah.
She was very... like, because she'd normally the odd man out in most conversations. She's normally playing devil's advocate.
Yes. She comes off a lot better in this book than she
Yes.
does in the series.
Yeah, but I think she has more to do.
Mm.
Because the series, I can't remember her getting much dialogue, much lines. Not, that's apparent and useful, like in this book.
Other than being thrown about by a godlike entity and declared, "This is a woman!"
Yes. Anyway, let's go on to nitpicks. I shall start with my first nitpick, which is the first line of the book.
Mm.
The USS Enterprise swung in orbit about Starbase 173.
I mean, yeah.
But that's not how it works. You can't be in orbit of a starbase. The starbase is not dense enough. It would have to be, the only way it's in orbit would be if someone's on the Enterprise and doing donuts around the station. That's the only way it's going to be in orbit. And even then, it's not technically orbit. Right, do you want to say a nitpick first?
For a start, the idea that they go down to the planet... I mean, the Elysian planet, the one where Thalia is at the start of the book, it's reported as that there was a previous crew that went down to that planet and met the locals and started bouldering all over the planet, and it was only after the crew started climbing the sacred mountain that all of a sudden the shamans, I'm going to treat them as shamans, they're the speakers, suddenly then said, "No, you got to get off our planet, you're not allowed on our sacred mountain, please leave." They left because of the Prime Directive, at which point I went, why were you there because of the Prime Directive? That's a pre-industrial civilization. They literally live in mud huts. You shouldn't be down there in the first place.
I think it was just because the planet was so unique and strange.
Again, yeah, there is an attempt to explain it. But, and then when you go to the planets later in the book.
Anyway, first let's stay with Lisa.
Well, okay.
Right.
I was just saying that the Prime Directive does get violated a lot in this book.
Yes, I'm going to go on to that. During the trials, they're talking to each other. Now, it translates the word scarecrow.
Mm.
What she's saying is something else, but it translates it to scarecrow. But she keeps saying, or is it sija?
Yeah,
which is sheep. Doesn't get translated into sheep at any point. It's always sija. But scarecrow does. Why? What's the difference in those words? I don't know. It just seems arbitrary. The word translation.
No, I agree with you there.
I mean, have you got any more nitpicks?
Yes. Data, when he's on the planet, and as an android, he refuses to eat the meat dish that is prepared and brought to him. Now, that's not a problem at the time because he's worried about offending them. No issues because Riker and Worf partake in the meal. There's no problems. But he specifically says that he doesn't choose to eat meat because of the ethical considerations. And yet, and there is a way of fudging it, but I'll hold that until the end. The second meal that he eats is a meal in 10 forward, which is some sort of spiced meat with flaky pastry. At which point I went, wait a minute.
Yeah, but they do explain that at that point, because on the planet he's actually eating meat.
Yes.
On the ship he's eating synthetic meat.
Yeah. I don't know whether she was trying to make a point with it that as soon as he becomes human, he suddenly violates this rule of I don't eat meat. Again, the whole thing of him losing his halo. Because later on, I keep going to say later on in the show, later on in the book, he has a roast beef dinner. And again, it's like, you've specifically said that he doesn't eat meat. But now, and the only way I could get round it, like I say, was with the whole idea of it's replicated, it doesn't count.
Yeah. It was never a real animal.
Yeah, but still, I still think that's, if you're not eating meat for ethical reasons anyway, it seems a bit weird that you would then go even for replicated fare. Perhaps that's just me. I mean,
like, maybe, as you say, it's, you know, to point out, he's human now, and maybe he has different ethics. Right. Okay, so one of the other ones I have is, now, you hear this when Data's gone back to the gods, and he's looking at the timeline. And apparently the Connor people who systematically attack anyone on site who can't project their voice. You find out they've traded with the Ferengi for like a
biogenic weapons.
Yeah.
Yes.
What? How? I mean, like, the second time the Ferengi tried to deal with them, you know, they lose one of their ships because they attack them and try and
steal it. Yes.
Yeah. Fair enough. The first time, it's just like, why? Is that just to show Data? Oh yeah, your friends with Silver Paladins, they get killed. What? That seemed like petty and cheap. Your last nitpick.
My last nitpick, it's not really a nitpick, so to speak, but it's Mystery the cat. And it's notable that...
I did like Mystery the cat.
Well, she's another character that has definitely come out of completely nowhere. To be noted, it's not Spot. Spot doesn't appear until season 4. But Mystery is described as being able to get into all sorts of places that she shouldn't be. She gets into...
She gets through locked doors somehow.
Yes. I know it's supposed to be a conclusion part of the story, but the idea that she then starts treating Data and she starts purring, it's that nice, hopeful thing. But I never got the impression that that was a problem for Spot. I never got the impression that it was... And it's supposed to be later on, obviously, in the narrative.
Well, that's it. It's to go, oh, look, Data has a soul.
Yes.
You know, it's the... For every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. It's that moment they're trying to go for.
I know they're going for that.
Yeah.
It's just... I never got the impression that it was an issue for Spot. Like I say, the idea that Spot wouldn't purr for Data, or that Spot wouldn't, wouldn't treat him as anything other than it looks like a person, it feeds me like a person, it plays with me like a person, so therefore I'm going to purr for it.
Yeah.
I know that it was going... I think this is one of the weaker nitpicks, obviously, because it's going for that thing of the cat knows, and then at the end of the episode, like, oh, the cat now thinks Data has a soul, so it's purring, and it's like, yeah, it's... I know what you're going for, but at the same time...
Yeah, it comes across as a bit cheap. Yeah. Anyway, my final nitpick, and probably your nitpick as well. At the, like, near the end, the wrap up of the situation with the planet just breaks Prime Directive. It just, like, breaks.
Oh, yeah.
it. It's not even set up like, oh, well, the Federation will do an inquiry into whether it's been violated or not. And of course, being the Federation will go, oh, no, it hasn't in this instance. You've been good. And just, tick it. But
See,
that isn't even set up. It's just like they've broke the Prime Directive.
but the Prime Directive being... There are issues with the Prime Directive. There are
Yes.
massive issues with the Prime Directive.
Yes.
And sometimes it being treated as so sacrosanct as to not...
But with it in the book being set up as this is Prime Directive, this is what Picard would have done,
Yes. That's exactly the thing.
and then
They have the argument, they have the discussion. It's like, we are not allowed to interfere, we are not allowed to do this. This is exactly why the Prime Directive has been set up, and sometimes we have to stand by and watch someone get murdered by a more powerful species, and it's like... And then for them to bend the rules at the end for... It's like...
just because Data can communicate with them, it's like, oh yeah, and like Data's not just communicating.
He's bald-faced lying.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's tricking them. It's like, oh, you're just tricking them because they enslave people and kill people of their own race.
Mm.
That's the only reason you'll think this is okay. Because really, this breaks Prime Directive.
But I still like this book, and I'm willing to overlook that in this instance. And I know it breaks the Prime Directive, but I'm willing to overlook that because, frankly,
oh no, like don't get me wrong, I'm willing to overlook it as well.
Yeah.
But it is clear, especially with how the book's set up and how there is that discussion, almost in the middle, we're pushed a bit, but almost in the middle of it, about the Prime Directive. It is set up that it's clear to see they are breaking the Prime Directive.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no discussion like, should we, like, is this ethical? Should we, or like, there's an inquiry going to happen after it? It's just, well, hey, we've done it.
Things turned out okay this time, so yeah.
So we'll go on to final thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, what did your final thoughts on it?
I think I've made myself perfectly clear. I like this book, even with the nitpicks and the issues that we've already pointed out. I enjoy it as an episode of the TNG series that perhaps never was, and that explored a different facet of Data's character. Doesn't have to be there. It's perfectly acceptable beta canon, but it's, I liked it as the story it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a perfectly fine standalone story. It does have references to another book, but it's perfectly fine standalone. Overall, I probably like it less than you. I think the nitpicks drag it down a bit more, and the problems I have with the ending drag it down a bit more. So I can't wholeheartedly recommend it. But I think if you're a fan of, especially the original TNG series, it is worth a read. I think we'll leave it there. Right, so that finishes our spoiler talk on the Star Trek novel Metamorphosis. So what are we reading next week?
I believe we should be doing some more classic sci-fi.
War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells.
More so than anything else, because I'm sure I can find plenty of adaptation material. Thanks for watching, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Right then, so that finishes our spoiler talk on. Right, so that finishes.